regroup. This is about changing the narrative. So like I said, we know very well about being what our parents want us to be. Right? All obedient children do exactly as our parents want, follow the religion that our parents follow, go to the college that our parents suggest, pick the subjects that are good for us, marry the man that they pick or they suggest, choose a career that they want. Basically, we do exactly what our parents want, and this has been going on for 5,000 years. It's nothing new. You don't fight the system. It's a system that's been working for several years, and you don't rock the boat. But this generation is one of revolution. It's one in which everybody has been given this power to think and to change. Now, if you look at the Latin community, you take, it's not just Indians and the caste system. My maid who worked for me, Teresa, was a wonderful maid, right? She had her baby out of wedlock. And her daughter, she was married and everything, skipped a generation. Her granddaughter, 12-year-old, had a baby last year, 2 years ago. And it was very, very tragic. But I was talking to friends and others and people who, my other maid who works with such women in the church, and she was saying that this is the narrative. It just keeps happening. The mother has a baby at 16, the daughter has a baby at 16, the other child has a baby at 16. It goes on generation after generation after generation. Who is going to change the narrative? Who is going to break out of this chain? Yes, you've seen your mother do it. You've seen your grandmother do it. You've seen everything. And then you say, I don't have a choice. This is what I've seen all my life, so this is what I do. But there is going to be one person that breaks out, that educates herself, that waits to get married before having a child. And we all know many such women. We also know many women that have been caught in this struggle. I used to go to volunteer in a school on commercial. And I was there one time for the parent-teacher conference. It was a kindergarten class or a first grade class, I don't remember. And the Latin children, I noticed that the parents were coming, father and mother. They didn't speak English, we had translators and everything. But for the African American children, the grandmothers were coming. The grandmothers. I asked the teacher, I said, I'm really surprised that, the parents are working. She says, half these children live in homes with 3 generations of women. There are no men in these households. The women are working, so the grandparents come. And the grandparents were very young. The grandmothers were very young. They didn't look like, your 70-year-old grandmothers. They were 40-year-old grandmothers. 45-year-old grandmothers. A lot of them. Right? So this is the narrative. This is what you're learning. This is what you're seeing. And so it goes on and on and on until someone says that this has to stop. I can think, and I can choose. It reminds me of a story, the Prahalada story. Prahlada was born to Hiranyakashipu. Okay, you just see that even our historical, our tradition has all the stories, has all the knowledge that we need. It's what we get from it. In utero, Prahlada was already receiving the vibrations of an omnipresent, an omniscient God, someone who is kind and caring and there no matter what. And by the time he was born, he had no choice other than be a devotee of Vishnu and not of Hiranyakashipu. He went against everything his father taught him. Everything his father taught him. He challenged his father. This young boy had so much faith in the choice he was making. He challenged his father. Something that is shocking. Something that is utterly shocking. What happens in homes these days when the children challenge their parents? The same thing that happened right then, back then. There is pandemonium. Okay, we don't end up killing our parents, hopefully the way Prahlada did. We don't need to take all the lessons from our mythology. Yeah. We don't need to take all. But another point that, I always think of when I think of the Prahlada story is that we talk all this time, always when I'm talking to people, I talk to you about this universal energy, that you are Godified, that it's there, it's everywhere, it's all the same, it's universal consciousness. And that is what he called on. That is what he called on. And because people don't understand when you talk about these big words, consciousness and supreme intellect and Brahman, this is all too much for them to understand. They prefer to think of Vishnu breaking himself up into a zillion pieces. And that's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is, and that is exactly what happened. But I digress. I've seen too many families get into so much of misery. If you look at the eyes of women in India, in Mexico, in any rural area where they don't have much of a choice, there is this dullness in their eyes, In Art of Living, we have this exercise that we do. We look into people's eyes because they say that eyes are supposed to be a mirror of the soul. And you can see this very clearly, that the eyes in these women, there's a light that's missing. There's something that's missing in their lives. That they've been forced into a life that they don't really want. But they have to do it anyway. How many people today in this world are living lives that they don't like, that they don't choose, because they're scared of doing what is not conventional? How many people are born with homosexual tendencies and keep that hidden and suffer inside because it's just not okay? It's just not okay to be gay. What will my parents say? What will my grandparents say? So many kids used to come to Bal Vihar and tell me that I don't agree with, my parents won't let me wear anything other than long pants and long shirts. So I carry clothes in my backpack to school and change. They're so scared to make a difference. We don't want them to do anything different. Anything different. So for generations, my father, the greatest pride for him was that his 3 daughters married 3 Ayyars. And now, my children have heard this narrative so often about how good it is to marry within the community. They are unwilling to consider non-Indians. And here I am saying, there is the divine light in everybody. There's even divine light in Latino boys, and there's divine light in Jewish boys, and there's divine light in... And they're not listening to me and not willing to change the narrative.
No, they are independent.
No. What I'm saying is that most kids have heard it so much. They've heard it so much that that's what they want to do. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to do something different. There was a time when somebody married out of the community. I know when I was growing up, it was the source of gossip. It was the source, nobody talked to, everybody was like, oh my God, did you see what that person did? Pao, Muslima Kalyana Panita. We're just feeling so terrible. And we have no idea how nice that relationship is or what has gone into it, how lucky they are to be in love and marry somebody. No. We are not bothered about those things. We're very tuned in to what our parents are. Yesterday, I met someone from Rajiv's office. And she struggles because she is an environmentalist. She is all about global warming and making a difference and helping people. And her father is a hardcore Republican. She cannot even talk to him directly. So she sends him emails and puts things on his Facebook page because she cannot confront this. She has made the change. Right? You're brought up in a certain way. You make the change. You were born 200 years ago and you were living in the South. You had your attitude towards the working slaves, which were like your parents. And if you gave them enough food to eat, you were considered to be a wonderful person. Now, 200 years later, if you're still thinking like that, you still haven't changed the narrative. You know what is happening in the world. You know things are changing. But, like we say, the Ayyar sons-in-law are the best. So you want that. You want that. That which has worked for thousands of years. 500 years ago, everybody used guns. Why aren't we walking around with spears in our hands? We've changed the narrative, right? We've changed a lot of things. And about kids' careers too, I've seen parents who get so unhappy if their children are not doing, the usual engineer, lawyer, doctor. And their kids are going for something different. My daughter hears it all the time. Why did you choose this line? Yes, it's a difficult line. Yes, your jobs are not guaranteed. Yes, you earn much less than a doctor does. But there is something to be said about the divine's plan for you and what makes you completely happy. There are very few people who actually find that their jobs complete something inside of them. Most people, they work and then they have a life. So your work is from 9 to 5 and your life is from 5 to 9, right? So you can have that life. And that's how it is for most people. There are very few chosen few who actually get it 24/7. The job that they do is the one they're passionate about. They're doing what is swadharma, goes perfectly with what they're aligned with. Most of us are dying to get home from work and relax and do the things that you want. Whereby sometimes I feel I'm blessed that I searched for many, many years. I tried this, I tried that, given my circumstances, I did what I could. And then I found something I really like doing. Late in life, it doesn't matter, but I changed the narrative. I changed the narrative. Nobody in my family has ever been a writer. Nobody. And I've heard it plenty. You are not earning any money, you are not helping out in the household, shouldn't you be looking for a job and helping your husband out? This is okay to do it in your free time, but you should be doing something real. You hear this, right? Because everybody else has real jobs. They all work in IT. IT is solid. You'll always get a job. It's difficult to change the narrative. It's very difficult. Because it means that you have to have a personal conviction, a very strong conviction that what you're doing is perfectly right and good and pure. And then you do it. And then you do it. Does that signal the end of the talk or what? Yeah. So yeah, we need to think about how we're bringing up our children. Are we raising them to just be, eggs in a carton? You can't tell the difference between one egg and another egg. Or are we teaching them to leave their imprint on this earth? And by not changing the narrative, you're doing a great disservice to yourself. Because who knows what your potential? Do you know what your potential is, or what you're capable of, or what you were really trained to do, or what your natural ability is? If you've never tried it, if you've never been brave enough to break free, how do you know? How do you know what is right for you? And that's what we must teach our children to do. That it's okay if you don't get married. You don't have to get married. You don't have to have the traditional type of job. You can do whatever makes you complete. I'm not saying happy. Happy you should be. Happy you should be regardless. But there is that something that makes you complete. And we hold our children back because we're very scared of what society will tell us and what they will say about our kids. Marrying it like this, or being gay, or doing something, living in an outlandish place, leaving everything and going off somewhere to do something. How many of our kids just take off? Just take off for 2 years and just roam the world. I have a student in the other class and her daughter has been doing that for 1 year. I don't think my daughters could survive the tension, or I would not be able to sleep one night if they went from country to country, living in hostels and living, getting whatever job and then making ends meet and moving from place to place. But yet I'm limiting them so much. And they don't want to change the narrative. They've bought into my thinking. Completely bought into my way of thinking. I'm not sure that what I'm saying is correct or wrong. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just saying what my mother told me. And she said to me what her mother told her. And so it's been going on. And so it's been going on. We all have different realities. We all have different rules. What's meditate now? I'm thinking